Breaking news, and we're live to talk about it. Cody Bellinger has re-signed with the Cubs. Great way to wake up, by the way. Two different ways. Great way to have the Cubs make a big move, and it was reported while I was sleeping late last night. So here we are on Sunday, and we're going to talk about it. Thanks for hanging out with us here on the Cubs Baseball channel. Make sure that you guys like and subscribe. Give us a thumbs up. Let's talk about it. What does Cody mean to the Cubs? What does this mean to the roster? We're going to talk about the deal, but Cody Bellinger coming back, something that I thought was going to happen. I said, look, 75-25, he comes back, and Jed Hoyer with another really good club-friendly deal. I think this one works out both ways for the Cubs and for Cody Bellinger. I think everybody's happy with this deal, 3 years, $80 million. But it makes you think maybe the Cubs have room for more. Could that be the case? We're going to talk about it right here on the Cubs Baseball channel. Let's get this thing started. What do you say, everybody? Welcome to the show. I'm still here. I don't drink coffee anymore, but I do have my energy drink, and it's great to see all of you guys as fired up as I am that the Cubs got the deal done for Cody Bellinger. Get in the comments section. Let me know what you think, but you can't deny that this is another win for Jed. I mean, this is another win, not just for Jed, but for the Cubs, because being locked in at rumored 7 or 8 years with Cody Bellinger just didn't work for the Cubs. With that said, it is great to have him back on this roster. And he's a difference maker, and now all of a sudden you add this piece to what the Cubs have, and you get this feel, this vibe about where the Cubs are right now with a lot of these young guys in camp. It doesn't feel like they're young guys. It doesn't feel like when I'm watching, and it's only 2 spring training games, but when I'm watching these guys play, I'm not getting the freshman vibe. I'm getting the vibe that we're ready to come out there and really kick some ass, and the young guys are there to win jobs. With that said, Cody Bellinger was the best player on the team last year, and he was also the leader of the team. He becomes the face of the franchise because he's the most recognizable player on the Cubs right now, which I think is a big deal. He did everything right last year. He deserves $30 million. Is it? What's $30 million a year? Let's get into some of the details of the contract because, I think that's important too. But I figured this was going to happen. I just didn't know when. And it happened, early Sunday or late Saturday night. I don't know what the exact time on that. Depends where you're at. But 3 years, $80 million. Bellinger has opt-outs after the first and second year, which basically means that he can opt out and do the whole thing over again if he wants to, or he can re-sign, or they can negotiate an extension, which I would not be surprised if the Cubs weren't interested in that. I don't know how that would work with Scott Boras. But with that said, this is a guy who is going to make the Cubs a lot better and could be one of the best players in baseball. I also like the fact that there's opt-outs because if he plays like he did last year, if that gave him a little motivation, a little bit of extra kick, he's going to have that again this year. And I've talked about it before. I think competition's good. And I also think having something hanging in front of you is good. I think when these guys get into the long-term contracts, sometimes you've seen it with Anthony Rendon. Hey, my family's my priority, which is not a bad answer, but when you're paid by someone, doing the job that they ask you to do needs to be a priority too, This was a quote from Kyle Hendricks talking about Bellinger. He said, talking about Bellinger on the team last year, he said, just the defense as a whole, I think the whole pitching staff kind of talks about it. That's what we had in years past, our best years, was our good defense. And that was the stalwart of this team. Up the middle, we were strong, belly and center, having versatility of going first, too. Yeah, I mean, and I feel like that's where Cody Bellinger makes the Cubs better. He's an insurance policy at first base and an insurance policy in center field. Pete Crow Armstrong's going to play some center, but having Cody Bellinger there means that, hey, if the guy doesn't get it done, then you know what? You got somebody else. All right, let me go to these comments here. Uncle Gary, great to see you. Let's go. I'm fired up with you. 100 people watching live, man. Please thumbs up, subscribe to the channel. I honestly, it feels like Christmas. I mean, some of you guys are saying that this happened at 2 a.m. Central. Thank you, Eric. Yeah, I was sleeping 2 a.m. Central. I was dead asleep. I should have set my phone to like some kind of Bellinger alarm and had you guys, because I would have got up at 2 a.m. I roll over and I'm like, am I seeing this? And you guys, some of you guys got into my Twitter and you're like, hey, we're going to talk about it. I do a lot of the shows that we put up, the daily shows, the night before and then post them in the morning. So they're not live like this one. So, you know, if you're signing at 2 a.m., I might miss that. But that show that I did, the fact that John Heyman is connecting the Cubs with Jordan Montgomery would not surprise me. I mean, I think the Cubs still have money, and I don't. The market right now is dead. It's just dead. I mean, do you think Cody Bellinger really would have wanted to take 3 years, $80 million? From the beginning, they were talking about $200 million, and I figured it would be somewhere in the range of 5 years, you know, 130, 140 somewhere. You know, to go 3 years, 80 is an advantage to the Cubs just because of all the young players that they have. And this camp is so talented. I mean, it's fun watching the games. One of the things that I really like, guys, about the way that they're doing camp is that they're not just throwing, like, at the end of the games, some of the young pitchers. And they were talking about this yesterday. They're going to put some of those guys that the Ben Browns and stuff at the beginning of the game so that they're pitching with, I want to say, in football, they say good on good, the ones. I don't know how you would say it in baseball, but with the starters, and get and see what those guys do there, but so far camp's been really exciting. And it's like now all of a sudden your best player just showed back up again. And I'm sure that part of this for Bellinger is this: if you let this thing go, I start to get a vibe that the Cubs didn't really need him. Now you love to have him. Don't get me wrong. There's a lot of good young talent on this team. So anyway, all right, let's go through some more of these comments and tell me what you guys think. What a great contract, Jed. I've said it before, and as you guys kind of get to know me and I get to know you, you're going to know that I'm brutally honest about my opinions. I've worked in the organization for 20 years. And I've been a Cubs fan since the 80s. And I really mean it. I think Jed's doing a good job. I love the biggest thing, and I've said it on here time and time again, is that he and the organization had to get past the elitism that when winning the World Series brought. Where they won in 2016, and then all of a sudden it was like everybody thought they were kings. There was a sense of entitlement. That's gone. And I think that's where it all starts, because you can't win anything with a sense of entitlement. And I felt like that was the kind of, and I'm throwing a broad brush on it, but the entire organization, that's gone. And then all of a sudden now you're back to that blue collar Cubs mentality that had always been there, that I think really defines the Cubs. Just watching guys just busted and, have a little bit of a chip on their shoulder. And I love that. And then the deals that Jed has made this offseason have been deals that have been good for both sides. I mean, shit, you just got $80 million if you go to Bellinger, and that takes care of you for the rest of your life. You just got, you were doing the $16, $17 million contracts. You got your big contract. It might not have been enormous, but the market right now is telling us that we're not having more of these enormous contracts unless you're Shohei Ohtani and you're bringing in another entire culture of baseball. So, I think one of the reasons why Ohtani got that big contract was the marketing value of it. But if I was Bellinger, I mean, good looking dude, great personality. He could be on everything in Chicago. He could be like when Chris Bryant was there. I mean, you go to the stadium and there's Chris Bryant wearing like somebody's jeans, and in commercials and stuff. He could do that times 10 right now on the Cubs. So, yeah, I think it's a great contract, and I think Jed deserves a lot of credit. Baldmini Sports Cards, great comment there. Monty, that's great. Gives the Cubs some options. Think about the lineup that the Cubs have right now. When you see these guys like Pete Crow Armstrong I'm telling you, this guy is locked in and ready. He's gonna cause havoc when he gets into games. Now you got Bellinger in there. What's Michael Busch gonna do? I got this feeling that Matt Mervis, who I think is off to a good spring already, is going to have a chip on his shoulder because of the signing of Michael Busch. What's Michael Busch going to look like? You can ease all of those guys in because you can move Bellinger to different spots. Hey, here's his game at first, and on same game you could move him around. But you got the middle infield defense with two Gold Glovers, Dansby and Nico. I think Dansby probably helped out with this, staying in communication, things that players can do that upper management can't do. You get the feeling that Dansby, after, kind of signing last year, has almost taken the role of like player, like he's like a player front office guy. Just some of the comments, the fact that he went to Jed last year and asked him to let the team keep fighting. They didn't make the playoffs. I would have traded everyone. You guys know that. But at the same time, even though they didn't make the playoffs at the end of the year, it changed my opinion because I feel like the experience of getting that close could help these guys this year. Because you realize you were that close. You were that close. One of the teams you were battling with that got in at the deadline made it to the World Series. Why can't the Cubs be that team? Eric says, good morning, Mick. Some of us knew hours ago. Yeah, because some of you guys must be like, some of you guys must get up really early. Maybe you had your phone set for the Cody Bellinger is going to sign mode, right? Why did they release this in the middle of the night, though? It's a good question. Some of you guys, I feel like we talk all the time in the comment section, and it's great to see that you're jumping in here as well. Yeah, great news. I agree with that. Brian says, does he play first center? Put DH in there too. If I'm Craig Counsell, one of the biggest things, let me go back to what I feel like Craig Counsell brings to the table. One of the biggest things that a manager can do, and you can apply this to the Bears as well, right? With football, is flexibility, is creativity, right? It's like, how many times do you see a team with players and you're going, man, why can't we get this guy into a situation to succeed, And some of it's play calling, but in football, right? But in baseball, it's creativity as far as reading the lineup every day. Things change. The lineups, like when you put a lineup together, right? It's 9 guys against a starting pitcher. Well, as soon as that starting pitcher leaves, now all of a sudden it's an entirely different scenario, right? Great managers are able to change and be creative based on what the matchups are. And as they change during the course of a game, use the entire roster. And I think that that's something that we're going to see a lot. And that's what Cody Bellinger really brings to the table. As the game changes and the bullpen changes the game by guys coming in to pitch, you can move him to center field. You can move him to first base. Obviously DH is a spot where you're really, unless somebody's coming off the bench. I mean, you could change that too. But if you were already in the game doing something else, they're not going to move you to DH. But with all that said, the Cubs have so much talent right now. I think Craig Counsell's going to kind of get to that point where he's like, holy crap, man, we have a lot of options here to use to be creative. So I don't think that it's going to be a situation where I'm positive. Cody Bellinger is not going to be your everyday center fielder or your everyday first baseman. He's going to be both. And then you're going to use the young guys to build into those spots as well. And then he can also play DH. And I would think that with like someone like Pete Crow Armstrong, the way he runs the bases, he'd be a great late game option. His defense being so fantastic, and basically finding a way to make him, all these young guys, comfortable, feel like they're part of the team, and get past the stage fright of playing Major League Baseball and get them focused on just doing what they do, right? But when you look into that dugout in these games and you see all the talent, I just think that going back to the contract, it would have been foolish for the Cubs to sign, a 5, 6, 7 year deal for Cody Bellinger, because they're here. That's the thing. Like we always say, well, they're coming. No, they're here now. And it's going to be a lot of fun to have him kind of as the headliner, and then all these other guys kind of around him flanking. So I think he's going to do those three things: DH, first base, and center field. Joe, great to see you. And it is a huge win for the Cubs. Good morning to you, John. John's my man. I know I talk to you a lot, John. You're a morning guy. I should have given you my number because I know you were up and you could have hit me and said, hey, this is breaking. Although I don't know that I could have rolled out of bed at 2 a.m. and just gone live. But I'm happy, man. I mean, this feels like Christmas. Yeah, and John, I'm with you, John, and you know this. I've told you guys on this channel from the beginning, the way you win this is by being patient, because a lot of you guys would have just jumped, given him the $200 million and the 7-8 years, and the market told us. And this is, look, you guys know I went to college at the University of Alabama, and I had to take the economics classes, and that was my minor. And I know how things work. There's some years where you wouldn't have touched Cody Bellinger for 3.80, but it's not this year because of the revenues that are falling with these TV markets. You're talking about a lot of the mid and small level market teams that are out of the mix. I heard an interview on a Bruce Levine show with one of my all-time favorite broadcasters. And honestly, if I was in charge of Marquee, he's a guy that I would bring back to the Cubs mix somehow, right? And I'm not saying get rid of anybody, but I'm saying add him to the mix, and that's Steve Stone. I love Steve Stone. I grew up watching Steve Stone, him and Harry, right? And I love the fact that Stoney tells you exactly what he thinks. He's been to that point now in life where he can say exactly what he thinks, and what are you going to do about it? And he was talking about, how baseball's kind of going through a thing right now where he's afraid that it's going to be a have or a have not game, because of how expensive it is and, and all that stuff. And I think he's right. And I think that it's, and not only is it a have or a have nots thing right now because it's so expensive to go as fans, which I hate, but with these TV, the regional networks collapsing, some teams are spending, like the Dodgers and the Cubs are spending too. And then some teams like Cleveland and, those kind of, I was going to say the Padres, but they still have a high payroll, but it's going down, aren't. And as bad as it is, if you're the Cubs, you got to take advantage of that. But on the other hand, it also told us that we didn't have to jump for Cody Bellinger. That didn't have to happen because there wasn't any competition to sign him. That's just how it was. Now I'm sure somebody would have taken this deal, but I'm just saying, like, at $200 million, just no one was going, yeah, I'll take that, So, but John, great to see you, man. Thank you for being part of the channel, and go Cubs. Stephen Bryant, go Cubs. Hey, thanks, man. Go Cubs, right to you. Great morning. Let's go. I'm fired up. Eric says it finally happened. We knew it was going to happen, though, man. Like, it just, you just could feel it. I was honestly, and we've had Jesse Rogers on. We'll have him on again. I love Jesse. I was a little concerned when I heard Jesse on ESPN 1000 say he thought it was 51-49. And basically he was saying the Cubs have a history of not working with Scott Boras. And Jesse's smart, man. I mean, he's a great dude and knows his stuff. And it kind of felt like that at times. But where I was basing my 75-25 on is the market, which we just talked about. And also the fact that everybody wanted him back. I mean, I don't remember a free agent negotiation where the players themselves were saying, hey, we got to bring this guy back. Pete Crow Armstrong, who's going to be, basically sharing center field with Cody Bellinger, was like, he's a great guy. We need him back. He's going to help us win. Dansby Swanson at Cubs convention. Kyle Hendricks, kind of in his really smart, intellectual way, said the same thing. And that's important. I mean, the players, what they think in the environment that they create is going to make stuff like this happen because it's their team. At the end of the day, you could go out and get the best manager in Craig Counsell. You could put all the best players in the room. And if they decide they don't want to play, they're not going to play. But if they decide that, they're going to go out there and make it hell on you every day that you're on the diamond against them, they're going to be a tough force to beat. And if they decide that they want this guy on their team, it's going to happen because he knows that. He wanted to come back. They wanted him back. And it was just about the financials of it. So, Lewis says he found out exactly 12 a.m. Mountain Time on Facebook. Yeah, Lewis, I needed you to wake me up. Good to see you, Rob. Good morning. Okay, Eric, he says let's sign Chapman. The video I put up last night was and it's still good. I mean, I didn't talk about Bellinger in it, but is that John Heyman says that the Cubs could be in the running for Jordan Montgomery. Let's talk about the free agent starters that are available because there could be some I'm looking at this and the market and I'm saying to myself, it's possible. Now, it doesn't match what the Cubs have right now as far as their starting rotation goes, right? Because you signed Jordan Montgomery, and now all of a sudden you've got a lot of lefties. Although you have a lot of lefties now in the rotation, that doesn't mean that you couldn't do it. You'd be very left-handed centric, but maybe there's a move that you make that's associated with that. And if you go out and you sign, and you can never have enough starting pitching. I mean, I think we can all agree on that. But if you go out and you sign Chapman, Chapman. I'm thinking Jordan Montgomery. Okay, signing Chapman. Let me switch gears here. All right, third base. Pretty big hole. Maybe they do sign Chapman, but I think he'd take a 1-year deal. I've said that from the beginning. So, and that's the one position on the field, third base, where I don't feel like I had to. You guys got me early in the morning here, so wheels are a little bit slower. It actually is the one position on the field where I just don't see. I don't think that it's just confidence that Christopher Morel needs to play third base. I think there's a lot more to it and a lot of learning in there, even if he says he loves the position. So I'm curious to see how that goes. Maybe they do sign Chapman. Because if Cody Bellinger got 3 years, $80 million, guys, Chapman's going to probably get, 2 years or something. Love the old school picture there. Let's go Cubs. Thanks, Everett. Monty says we don't need Chapman. Yeah, and here's the Happy Hermit. Great name. We don't need another lefty starter. That's kind of where I'm at with even yesterday, kind of reading that report and starting to chew on what John Heyman said. I'm not saying that you don't need Jordan Montgomery. I'm just saying if you do get Jordan Montgomery, then all of a sudden you got to look at your rotation and go, okay, what are we doing? And and how would that work? And John, you bring up a great point too, that the Cubs are right up there at the luxury tax. I think if you made another signing, you'd have to defer it like the kind of like we just saw the Dodgers do. The Dodgers just laid out the game plan, on how you get around the luxury tax. But yeah, I can tell you right now, no one has the appetite of paying that luxury tax. And it doesn't mean that you're going to win. But even if the Cubs don't make another move, this is a good team. I mean, you look at, let's start with the rotation. And now somebody's going to get hurt. It's just inevitable. But the rotation, I think the rotation right now is pretty solid. You need Justin Steele to come back and have a good year. We're going to find out if Justin Steele is elite. Last season, he was. I've always said about him, he's one of my favorite people off the field. And if you guys haven't met him yet, he's just awesome. Great guy. Loves to talk baseball. Like, just, and some guys, they like to play it. They don't like to talk it. Some guys like to play it. They don't like to think it. Steele likes to play it, likes to think it, likes to talk it, likes to watch it. He used to hang out in the press box. And so I've talked a lot of baseball with him. I like him a lot. And I like the fact that he's, a baseball savant, and he's just constantly, so the biggest thing for him had always been staying healthy. Well, he was healthy last year, and he's one of the best pitchers in baseball. So you got him. You need him to come back and be a number one. Jameson Taillon, and we've argued this on the channel, he's paid to be the number two. We saw flashes of that. I don't like his inconsistency. I like his numbers in the second half, but even with good numbers in the second half of the season last year, I felt like it was very inconsistent on what you would get from start to start. He's got to come in and be battling Steele for the ace job, role on the staff. But you're not going to get rid of him. I mean, he's a right-hander, right? You wouldn't just you're so left-handed centric, and you're not getting rid of Steele. So then you got Imanaga, he's set. He's not going anywhere. Another lefty. Then you get into the 4 spot, and it's Kyle Hendricks, another right-hander. I feel like eventually the professor, could be someone that he's been around a while. But a lot of it to me is if he can get his velocity up a tick, he's going to be that much better. But I love him. It's personal. I remember him coming up. I've known him since he started. He's the last guy from my World Series team and yours. I would just hope, like, hey, in my mind, he's going to play forever. And then we're going to have him in the Cubs Hall of Fame one day, right? Then the 5th spot, which is wide open right now, Jordan Wicks. And, you saw Drew Smiley pitch yesterday. He was in the starting rotation last year, first half of the season. Caleb Killian, someone that we saw pitch that I really wasn't considering for that mix, but he looked really good. Now, that's just one game, the beginning of spring, but maybe he's someone that could pop in and be in that fifth starter spot, right? But you start going through, Javier Assad deserves a look there. He's a right-hander. So there's probably 5 other guys. Ben Brown pitched yesterday. I don't know that he's ready yet. And my gut feeling is that he starts in the bullpen in the big leagues and then eventually gets kind of like they did with Assad. You kind of ease him in. So where would Jordan Montgomery go? Maybe knock Wicks out of the starting rotation if they signed him. So I don't know. I'm curious to see what people, the John Heymans that say that Jordan Montgomery is an option for the Cubs, how they would fit him in. Or is it the Cubs? I heard Bruce Levine saying yesterday, don't be surprised if the Cubs don't make some trades. I mean, maybe you make some trades somewhere between now and opening day and add to this team and take some guys away. I mean, you got a lot of utility players, not that there's a huge value for that, but how many Miles Mastroboni, Nick Madrigal, and even Christopher Morels do you need? I mean, that's the kind of 3 guys that are kind of doing the same thing. You'd love to have more stars on the back end of the bullpen, which baseball is kind of a back end bullpen game now, right? 7, 8, 9. You got to have people that can lock it down. So anyway, we'll see what happens there. I'm sure that there's talks. I mean, of course, and I guess just sitting here kind of talking to you guys about it, I could see maybe Chapman making more sense than Jordan Montgomery, although you got $3 million to work with for this year. How does that translate to next year if you're going to stay under that? Is there somebody that you would get rid of to save money? I don't know. I honestly look at what the Cubs have right now, and I'm kind of with Monty. I mean, this is a 40-man roster that's pretty solid. Some question marks with the young guys, but Eric says this was breaking it. Wow, look, yeah, but a lot of us are waking up right now, Eric. We woke up to it. We could have done the same show, you and me, Eric, at 1:30 a.m., and I don't know if we would have got anybody to watch. Ricky, wake up, man. Get your coffee. Yeah, I'm with you, man. This is Cubs Baseball Channel and coffee, as we're live right now, having signed Cody Bellinger to a 3-year. If you guys are just kind of waking up, let me rehash everything here. As you probably know, 3 years, $80 million, opt-outs after the first and second year. Bellinger going to make $30 million this season. And it's a big deal. You're kind of bringing Belly back. And now we're kind of looking at going through your comments and thinking about, what this means for the Cubs. Ronald says this, and I think this is a good one right here. Ronald Reinhardt. This contract has to feel like failure for Boris. Well, I think, yeah. I mean, one of the things, though, that you got to remember in negotiation is that you always ask for the moon, right? And then maybe they come back and go, okay, if you went into a negotiation and you said, hey, this is what I want, and they gave it to you, you're always going to wonder, like, well, what if I would have asked for this? So much of anything we do is based off of what our value is and what perceived value is, right? This drink right here, this Bang energy drink, I bought it at Walmart for $2. It was like $2. Now, if I go to the local grocery store, it's $2.50, and if I go to the gas station, it's $3.50, right? So it's the same exact product, but it's just priced differently because the value is different than at Walmart as it is in the food line as it is in the in the gas station. And I'm sure some places you might even pay like $3-4 for it. So you're trying to set the market somehow, and what you want to do, I guess, if you're Scott Boras, is you want to set it so far over here. And the crazy thing is that they were getting those contracts. I mean, look at the Angels. The reason they're broke is that they signed Pujols to one of those deals, Rendon to one of those deals, and those guys, they didn't win anything. They crippled their organization's ability to go out and get pitching. Kind of the core of winning is pitching and defense. They didn't have that. They did have Mike Trout. They had Shohei Ohtani, and they won absolutely nothing. And they're broke. And instead of investing within their organization and bringing up young players that could help them, they have a bad minor league system on top of it. But I feel like a lot of it was because of what they did at the big league level with some of the signings. And when Joe Maddon left there, he kind of alluded to that. Yeah, Eric says Boras failed and it feels great. I don't think anyone here was pulling for Scott Boras. But this one definitely. And anyway, going back to it, so the market kept going this way and going this way and going this way. And if you're Cody Bellinger, you probably could have got the same deal from other teams. That's going to pop up, I'm sure, from somebody somewhere. You're going to hear a story that, hey, the Angels were willing to go $10 million more or something, right? And Bellinger was probably like, I don't want to do that. Now, this has a feel, too, of the player getting involved and saying, hey, let's just get it done. Give us the opt-outs. We'll figure out what we're doing next year, but I want to play baseball. And this is Bellinger's team. These are his guys. And I think that he may have had a played a hand in it. Tom says, yeah, I thought Cody would hold out for at least 5 years. Good for Cody, good for the Cubs. Yeah, and that kind of just goes back to, to what I was just saying there. Sam says, release the news early so I could make it. Yeah, and that's probably what happened. I mean, I don't know, like the way that these stories are leaked. The teams have guys that they go to, right? The Cubs, for some reason, seem to connect better with national writers. The Bob Nightingale. I think, didn't he break the Amaga story? And the local guys are like, I don't think it's going to happen, and the Cubs have great local beat writers too. But then there's times in, some front offices will source it to the local guys. Hey, it's, so-and-so at the Athletic or so-and-so at the Sun-Times or the Trib, and in some markets, it's always the local guys, but the agent's also a part of that as well. So it may be, or even sometimes the players. Like, hey, I really like this guy. Hey, man, I'm about to sign. So kind of up in the air on who gets to break the news. But to do it that early, I mean, I guess that's, somebody found out and they're probably like, hey, in the morning. And they're like, yeah, the morning's right now. Jim said a great way to start Sunday morning. Now, do you know what the fun part is that now you get to start thinking about making lineups with Cody Bellinger in them and Pete Crow Armstrong, who, I saw somebody say he's got a hit. Look, Pete Crow Armstrong has spent the entire offseason tweaking his swing, kind of going back to when Anthony Rizzo had to do the same thing. Got to the big leagues with the Padres, couldn't do it. Got to the big leagues with the Cubs, couldn't do it. Went back, worked on things. Dustin Kelly's kind of been grinding with him on probably just, he's got really fast hands, just probably getting to the ball a little faster. I mean, I'm not a hit expert, but I've seen Pete Crow Armstrong hit, and I know he can do it. So I think it's just a matter of time. But Jim, great way to start the day. I'm looking through your comments right now. Here's Robbie says, Trevor Bauer's a righty and we're under the luxury tax with him. Yeah, I don't understand just forget it. Take the Cubs out of this. Take the Cubs out of this. And you guys know I've talked about this too. I'm listening to Mully and Hall on on radio in Chicago. And, I get it. Like, sometimes I don't know if it's like, hey, I'm covering like 10 teams here, Sox, Cubs, Bulls, Bears, like how much time you can spend on each team. But they're good. I love listening to those guys, and I have forever, even when it was, before Hall got there. I liked it. But I heard Hall talking about Bellinger or Bauer, and he's like, no, and it's like, okay, well, I mean, didn't we just go through the fact that the guy was framed? And I guess now Baltimore's looking at him. Somebody's going to sign him. Now, Major League Baseball is probably not going to be happy with that team, but I don't really know what that means. I mean, I just don't know. I mean, so what, right? There was a team that used technology to cheat and win the World Series, and apparently there were other teams that were doing the same thing, but one team did it and got caught, and no one got in trouble. So I don't know how signing Trevor Bauer would, what are they going to do? They're going to kick you out of the league. But the media and guys like David Hall are going to write a lot of stories making Bauer and the Cubs look bad. And I think that's one of the reasons why a team like the Cubs would stay away from him. If he went to the White Sox, probably be like, oh, they just signed this guy, because it's not that big of a story, because they're just not a big brand. The Cubs are a huge brand. Everything they do makes headlines, and that may be why the Cubs stay out of it, just because they don't want to deal with the smoke and the heat from this. But I agree, man. I would he would be a really great fit. I mean, where else are you going to go get a former Cy Young Award winner for league minimum? And then if you don't like him or he does something wrong, you just kick him off. And that's why Jonathan Papelbon was like, look, I'll pay his salary, but if he makes it through the season, you got to pay him the league minimum and me the league minimum. And I don't have that kind of money, but maybe if we all put in together, we could take that same deal, be like the lottery for us. And then at the end of the year, even the league minimum for us, we could still all split it up and be, we'd be in pretty good shape. Jared says, let's go Cubs. Jordan says, sorry, I'm late. Look, I was late too. I mean, we've been on now for 45 minutes, but I woke up and I'm like, did this really happen? Ben says, good morning from Puerto Rico. All of you guys, now we're up to 300 watching this live show. Make sure that you guys subscribe to the channel. Give us a thumbs up, man. Appreciate all of you guys for hanging out. Love Puerto Rico. Great place. Been out there quite a few times. San Juan's great. Food's awesome. People are fantastic. Great baseball fans. So glad to have you on. Jim, this is a great topic here. I'll get into this. How about bringing Cease back? Maybe. And I'm going to tell you why. If you were willing to flip Jordan Montgomery, or maybe even, I wouldn't trade Cade Horton for him. I just wouldn't. I think Cade Horton's the best pitching prospect the Cubs have had since Pryor and Wood. Yeah, I'm saying it. We'll see what happens. I mean, he was injured in college. He's got to stay healthy. But from where he is right now, I've seen this for 20 years. I don't remember seeing a guy like him. Now, we've had some good ones. Chris Archer was a good one. Andrew Kashner was a good one. Kyle Hendricks, not quite the same, not a power pitcher like Horton, but he was a good one. There's been other guys that have kind of come through, but not like this. You watch him pitch and you're like, man, this guy's a 1 or 2. Flat out. I didn't see Dylan Cease when he was with the Cubs. Well, you know what? I did see him in the minor leagues, but he was with the Barons, the White Sox. But the Cubs have the ability to make this trade if they want to, because they have the players in their system. And if you're bringing Cease in, which would be kind of a 2-year deal, maybe you say, hey, look, we'll make a trade with him and we'll give you those players, and you maybe work it to where you sign him for, you had a couple years onto it if he was willing to do that. Kind of like a trade and sign or something. But he's got to be someone that you're looking at. The breaking stuff wasn't as good last year as it's been in the past, but the fastball's still there. Cubs and White Sox under Theo with Jed on board always seem willing to make trades. It's tough to do it in the city because we talk about those trades a lot as Cubs fans. But anyway, yeah, that could be a possibility. I also would think about this as far as like making trades. Keep an eye on the Marlins and keep an eye on Cleveland. And the reason I say Cleveland is because every time I say Cleveland, I want to say Indians, and I know it's the Guardians. So I just say the first name to kind of save myself that. But I wouldn't be surprised if you packaged the right package that those teams aren't going to do something, if there's something to be done. So keep an eye there. But yeah, maybe Cease could be an option. Eric says, I think the rotation's set, and I think it is too. Joe, another guy I see a lot on the channel. Thanks for jumping in, man. I've preached patience, as did Mick. You just got to Tom Ricketts is a good dude, and I'm telling you guys, the media gives him a bad rap. I never get the impression with him that he's cheap. I mean, every time the stories I've heard, like going into the draft, he'll come in and like they have, like, this is what I heard from a former scout. He said, come in, we got this, we're going to do the draft. We got this, this board up. We kind of know where we're at, financially. And then Tom comes in and he's like, hey, if you guys need more money, we'll do it. I met him. I've known him for 15 years, as long as he's owned the team. I like him a lot. And every time I see him, it's, he doesn't want to be lovable losers. He wants to win. And when you're spending money, you've got to be smart about spending, or you're going to turn into the Mets or the Padres, right? You want to do it like the Rangers did it. Hey, we're going to go out and we're going to target certain areas where we don't have strength, and we're going to buy that. And we're going to add it to an organization that has multiple options at multiple positions. So, it's the easy thing that you can do as a fan, and I'm a fan too, right? Is just throw your hands in the air and say, oh, it's the owner's fault. He's cheap. It's really with the way that Tom does things is they set up a budget and he lets Jed run the baseball side and Crane Kenny run the business side, and he gets out of the way, and I'm sure that comes from, the business that he grew up in. What is it? I think it's called TD Waterhouse. But that's his leadership style. Some owners are a lot more hands-on, and then some of them are like Jimmy Johnson with the Cowboys, where he makes himself the GM, and then there's the accountability when you don't win. It's your fault, right? But Tom's the kind of guy that's gonna back off and let those guys do their thing. Uncle Gary, I love these comments. Rather than feeling like failure, I hope Boris lets some air out of the balloon and becomes a more realistic negotiator. The reason you're right is it would be better for baseball if the contracts were more realistic. Think about the Angels are a great example of what happens when you make bad long-term contract signings. It's not just that they don't have Ohtani, but deals like the Pujols deal, you didn't cut into the market that the Dodgers have in that same market. and you didn't win anything, and you just spent all that money, and it takes years of good decisions to kind of lead you to the part where you have an organization that, has good upward movement. So, team needs at least 6 starters. Yeah, I agree with that. I think the Cubs are kind of in that spot right now, although some of those guys may end up in the bullpen. Here's a great point. Matt says that the Rangers went through 12 starters, keep collecting pitching. I didn't know this. I didn't know that they went through 12 starters last year, but it does not surprise me. You're lucky if you make it through the season with just 6 guys. One of the smartest things I ever heard Theo talk about was that you need 8 or 9 starters. So when you put together your your rotation, it does take 8 or 9 starters. And I'm 100% behind that. I think that's right. And you got to have different options. So, maybe if they did sign if they went out and signed with it, they're going to have to be creative with the way the money works, or they're going to go over that luxury tax. Although I don't want to sit here and act like I'm like one of these. Every time you think you know what's going on with like the way that the money works, somebody will come back. Well, there is a clause that, it's like, man, you would have to be really like a lawyer to know all of the stuff that they've got going on with these deals and how things work and everything else. Tell me, guys, as we get in the into this, are any of you guys disappointed that the Cubs signed him? Because I know that in the comment section, some of you guys over the last like couple months were like, hey, I don't think we need him. I've always felt like, as you know, that he was coming back and that you wanted him to come back. I felt like this day was going to happen. Thanks, Scott. No, I didn't freeze. I was just saying, if like, since my voice is annoying, would it be better if I just didn't talk on my channel? The good thing for you, Scott, is if my voice is annoying, you can always go somewhere else and listen to somebody else talk about it. Steele, Imanaga, Cease, Wicks, Bauer. Wow, that would be a rotation right there. That'd be a lot more work, right? And would Hendricks would Hendricks take a role in the middle innings? I mean, are we there yet? Daniel says, awesome news. I'm stoked. So the Cubs had 11 guys start last year, Jim. I didn't know that either, but it makes sense to me. Thanks, Everett. I hope I have a good voice. It pays my bills, this annoying voice. It's most of the time when I'm on, people don't even see me. They just hear me. But I'm in a profession where, it's everything we do is subjective. So, some people like that. Some people don't, I was a Harry Carey fan. I'm sure there were people that hate Harry Carey and would say, hey, you know what? Boog Shambi's 100 times better than Harry Carey, the guy the Cubs have now, or Len Casper, whoever. Beautiful morning. All right, let's go back over everything again, though. Cody Bellinger, 3 years, $80 million contract, re-signs with the Cubs. That's obviously the big news that happened overnight. And that's what we broke into today. Could the Cubs make other moves? How does this affect the roster? The guys that they just signed, you wonder about Peralta and the other first baseman that they got from that was with the Nationals, I think. Those guys signed minor league deals. I think that their insurance policies, I could see them going a different direction. You're going to see probably Michael Bush and Cody Bellinger handle first base. Matt Mervis will get a lot of looks during spring training, but I would probably predict that Uncle Gary will meet you in the parking lot if you didn't like Harry. So most of these people, Uncle Gary, probably don't even remember Harry Carey. I think a lot of you guys do, but the younger crowd, they wouldn't have been around for it, which is kind of makes me sad that that I don't know that he's been gone that long and that I'm that old. Where I saw somebody just commented on Pat's thank you, Ricky. Pat Hughes has a great voice. Yeah. I'll tell you, I love Pat too, on and off the air. Like the fact that like I won a national award and Pat called me up and left me a message. And when he got into the Hall of Fame, I got to do the same thing for him. Really nice guy. And, him getting into the Hall of Fame definitely solidified his career because I know that was something that he really wanted to. He loves the history of baseball, and now he's like part of it, going down as one of the greats. And just like Harry, he's a Hall of Famer. So anyway, Bellinger play first base probably with Michael Bush, unless Bush, absolutely got clobbered by Mervis in spring training, and they felt like they were going to kind of reverse that. Maybe one guy ends up, in AAA. All right, I text Catfish Rob, but he didn't wake up. I said, "Hey, are you up right now?" Here's what I wrote: "Do you have time to jump on live? Cody signed," and the answer that I got is crickets. So Bellinger will play first base. DH obviously will be something like he did last year. And then center field, Pete Crow Armstrong is going to be in this mix. Does this make Mike Tauchman expendable, or do you keep him around? Where are we looking there? Especially if Pete Crow Armstrong, if they feel like they need that roster spot. Alexander Canario got more pop than any of those guys. Do you want to have that extra power on your bench? I think it gives Craig Counsell some flexibility as far as moving guys around. And then the other part of it is maybe some of these guys start out in the minor leagues. Then you see how the season goes for a guy like Tauchman. And then you're like, hey, it either sink or swim. And then, you move them out. So Len and Bob, two of my good buddies. Bob Brentley's the most interesting guy. Remember the most interesting guy commercials, and it'd be like Dos Equis. The guy's like doing he's bathing with monkeys in some spring somewhere, and then he's like drinking Dos Equis. That's Bob Brentley. It's like he's lived like 8 lives, right? I'm a big deadhead. You guys know that. He's like, oh, yeah, how about this time that we all went to the Grateful Dead show and hung out with Jerry Garcia? I love Harry Carey. He's like, yeah, the first time I worked with Harry. And then there was the time that he took me out on the town. And he's done it all. I still like listening to him on the Diamondbacks broadcast because he's such a cool dude. All right, just kind of clicked out of that. Anyway, Bellinger signs. Big deal for the Cubs. Just kind of get this back on again. And going through the comments right now. Have I ever thought about doing a morning show? Yeah, maybe. I think that we need to do more live shows. What do you guys think about doing a Friday watch party? That's kind of what I was thinking. Friday Wrigley games, we all just get together, watch the game because I know you guys will be watching too, and just kind of comment on it. I thought that would be a lot of fun, and that may be the direction that the next thing that we do. So that would kind of introduce more live content and kind of have reaction to the games as we watch them. And I'm thinking that eventually we'll go to I'll take one of my friends owns the country club in Wrigleyville, and Big Billy, if you guys know him, played college I think college basketball with CJ Edwards. Not CJ Edwards, Curtis Granderson, but we call him CJ, and great guy. And I've always wanted to do something there at his bar. Morning, Nigel. Signed the Bellinger, so you're just waking up for that. That actually happened at 2 a.m. Central Time. Yeah, we were kind of woke up to that, so it was a great thing. But yeah, that's kind of what the game plan will be moving forward. Anything else that you guys want to get into here outside of Cody Bellinger? We talked about the rotation. We talked about, maybe I'll get into third base a little bit more because I think that's the biggest hole on the roster. There's two parts of this roster that concern me. Third base and catcher. Third base is a gaping hole. There's absolutely no set starter at that position. Could Christopher Morel take over and be the guy? Yeah, I think he could. I just wish that he would have had the minor league time to learn the position so that when he got to the big leagues, we weren't learning with him. And there's less of an appetite to have failure and mistakes at third base defensively, or any position defensively in the big leagues, than you'd have in the in the minors. So, and then outside of him, Nick Madrigal, who just learned how to play the position, and defensively does it really well, but he's not a power hitter. It almost kind of feels like a stopgap. Patrick Wisdom, who I just defensively scares you every time the ball comes to him. Where does Madrigal fit in? To me personally, I think he's a really good utility guy. I would take him over some of the other utility guys, to be honest with you. The big thing for him, though, is just staying healthy. I mean, he was hurt so much last year. And if you're not healthy, I mean, it doesn't really matter, how you do when you're playing if you're not available to play. So, but I think he's a good fit. But you're right. Maybe I could see him going to another team. No doubt about it. Adam Gillispie, what's up, cuz? Even though we spell our names differently. Bodie wasn't bad at third. I'm really curious as to how Bodie kind of got put in this spot where he's in the minor leagues now, because they're paying him a big league contract, But he's another one of those guys like Brennan Davis, who had a good day yesterday, that we talked a lot about a couple of years ago. And then it's like, it feels like he's marginalized. Like he's just there. I'm definitely, that's when I go to spring training, I'm going to try to dig into the Bodie thing when I get on the ground and find out what, other than maybe they just didn't think he was that good. And that could have been David Ross, but yeah, I mean, he's under contract. I mean, he played third base, but he didn't last. And the fact that even though they had injuries last year, they didn't even call him up. So Michael Bush plays where? Well, look, Tom, I think Michael Bush plays first base still, but maybe he plays some third too. I mean, he's done it in the past. Not a fantastic third baseman. The Cubs envision him being more of a first baseman, but I also wonder if the fact that the Cubs were so dead set on Bush playing first wasn't more, could have been, and this was something that Catfish said on one of the, on the show, the show we do on Saturdays, always kind of our long form show. And he was saying, hey, it could be that the Cubs are saying things based off of, hey, we want Boris to hear that we have a first baseman and we have a center fielder. Maybe that's part of the negotiation. I don't know. But I think Michael Bush plays first. Maybe he could slide over and help him out at third too. Alex said it's because Bodie stopped hitting. Yeah, I mean, that could be it too. Rob wants to know, what are your thoughts on that special facility for hitting that Wisdom went to in the offseason? Batting in your underwear. And yeah. So Wisdom's like a beast, man. I mean, you talk about someone with he looks like he could be in like the next like Brock Lesnar type guy in WWE. He's definitely a big dude, and he's the thing that I hate is he is such a great guy. No doubt about it. You can tell he's a great person. I don't like his game because I think defense is really important. So, and I like guys that put the ball in play. But at the same time, like there's guys who, like Dave Kingman, I mean, he could play, hit a lot of home runs, struck out a lot. There's a spot for you. But I think that for me, I wish Wisdom would work on being better defensively too. I don't really know much about the facility. I do know that the players hate the new uniforms that make them look like they're wearing underwear. And I hate them too. They do look like knockoffs. Like, one of the coolest things about baseball uniforms was that it looked like somebody like literally took their hand and stitched the names on there. The Cubs patch always looks, I could just see someone like at a sewing machine, like taking it around, like the stitching wasn't perfect. You could tell where there was, like it was done by a person. And then the nameplates, like, somebody would take and literally stitch them on there. Now it really looks like somebody sent them off to China. So I don't know. Great to see Naren. You talk about, dude, thanks for coming on. Always one of my favorite reads in the comment section. And, you're one of the reasons why, and a lot of you guys are, that this channel is so much fun to do. And this is something that, like, as a longtime play-by-play guy, I really didn't want to like do that. I wanted to do this, but you worry that something that you're going to say when you're working for, like a TV network or whatever is going to offend somebody. They're going to take it the wrong way. And that's why I didn't start this earlier. But there's a chance that I start doing more stuff, but we're doing this now. And I think that we've kind of established the fact that we can have an intelligent Cubs conversation, have a lot of fun, even making fun of my voice, and do it in a way that's respectful. And Naren, I love, like, Naren, you guys probably read them in the comment section, but really well thought out, like, Cubs content from you. He said, I think Jed isn't done, but it won't happen now until midseason trades. That is a great point too. Last year we saw that, and it's because so many teams now are in the playoff mix that you're in a seller's market, right? Which means that they're going to get a lot more value than obviously the team that's trying to buy. But the Cubs have assets. So, if they come out, and now with Bellinger back in the mix, they're able to, push forward and be at the top of the division. We'll see where where the soft spots are, because right now it's hard to say. We feel comfortable here, we feel comfortable there, but then the season starts and someone doesn't perform or gets hurt, or then where you really need to improve. And I agree with that. I could see that. All right. Who pitches the 7th, 8th, and 9th inning? That's a great question. And right now, I don't know that we have an answer for that. Neris is going to pitch one of those innings. Alzolay is going to pitch one of those innings, or Alzolay. He was Alzolay when he was in the minors and Alzolay in the big leagues. I heard him talking about that on the broadcast yesterday. You figure he's going to pitch one of those innings. Leiter Jr., Merriweather. I mean, I'm. What do you guys think? And that could be an area too where the Cubs say, "Hey, you know what? We could go out and maybe we add one more back end guy." The pitcher that I'm really excited about seeing what they do is Luke Little. Pitched yesterday. My issue with Little is just consistency. He'll get in these stretches where he just can't throw a strike. And in the big leagues, that just doesn't work, right? Because you got to pitch to 3 batters. And I mean, I could see him going 3 batters with 3 walks. With that said, he may strike out the next 3 guys. He's got to get the ball over the plate because his stuff is filthy. He's a hard thrower. He's also intimidating. He's the type of guy, as big as he is, I think like 6'8" or something, that you just, and he comes from the side and everything looks like it's going to hit you with the way that the ball breaks. They get him to be more consistent with finding the strike zone and limit the bad days to okay days. And then the okay days, the good days, stretch out how many good days you have. He could be a real force in the bullpen. And Daniel Palencia is another guy I like a lot. Palencia is a hard thrower, triple digits. There's a finesse part of the game that you got to have. But when you come in and you're throwing an inning, you don't have to have the finesse. Hey, let's just get through it. Let's get some outs, throw strikes. So those are 2 guys I would keep an eye on too. As far as like under the radar, like minor league guys, there's a guy named Hunter Biggie. He pitched yesterday. He was the AA closer last year. And when I say closer, I'm using that very loosely because they don't, in the minor leagues, they don't let a guy come in and close games like they used to. Closer is like, hey, you're going to do it on once a week type thing, maybe twice. But in the playoffs, they do. And he was the closer last year, 97 miles an hour. He's a Harvard guy. He's got a good breaking ball. I'm curious to see what the adjustment's going to be because he got the AAA last year and got ripped up and then came back to AA and eventually found it. So he's got to go to AAA and figure it out and then to the big leagues and figure it out. But the stuff's there. And he's close enough where that if he figured it out at AAA, he'd be in the big leagues because you know how guys are always hurt in that bullpen. Right at you, man. Let's go get some beers. I just got a brand new keg yesterday on the kegerator back there. I haven't even tapped it yet. I bought it, but I haven't. So you guys will have to share a beer later today. Yeah, Tom says Luke Little. I'm with you on that one. Cubs record prediction. I saw where we put this up where Fangraphs had the Cubs 80 and 82. I think that would be a pretty big disappointment. And if they're 80 and 82, I mean, you're looking at your front office and there's some nervous people there. That would be to me, that would be a disappointing year. Saying that today, we'll see what happens during the season. But I think the Cubs could come close to 90 wins. I think it's going to be in the 85-90 range. I think they're going to make the playoffs. I like everything about what I'm seeing right now. First off, the Craig Counsell signing is fantastic. It's exactly what the Cubs needed. There's a certain professional energy that he brings to the table, attention to detail. This is a guy who's won in the small markets. He's never had resources, right? Milwaukee and Arizona, although that Arizona team he won a World Series with was, as a player, by the way, was stacked, right? That was a go all in year. Talking about Bob Brenly. But, was it the Marlins? Like he is, to me, the right guy to pound the fundamentals. And I think that's something that this organization's I think that's something that this organization really wants to is going to have to do a lot more of. Eric says 92 wins. Yeah, look, if they got to 92 or 97, they're going to make the playoffs. They're going to have to get in that range to make this a successful year, because they're going to have to make a playoff. Uncle Gary says, good call, Jordan, America's oldest brewery. All right, you guys know, I'm going to tell you right now that I love America's oldest brewery. Actually, they have been great partners of mine, and that's Yingling Lager. I don't know if they have that in Illinois yet, but Cheryl Yingling is one of my best friends, and went to college together. And her dad, Dick Yingling, is the guy that owns the business. Not many businesses anymore where you go up and you see the owner riding around on a forklift like her dad. But great beer. If you guys like beer, check out Yingling. If it's also a very economical beer. I mean, it's the same price as like Bud Light and Coors and all those. All right. Tom says 86 to 88 wins. The bottom line is this. I don't care as much about regular season wins, because with the playoff format the way that it is right now, it doesn't really benefit you to win 110 games. It almost benefits you to just make it, and then maybe not, make it and get hot. I mean, look at the teams that were in the World Series last year. Sitting out for a week and resting everyone up. I mean, it doesn't help in baseball. You want to be out there playing games and staying into the rhythm. So I guess to me, I would rather just whiz right into the playoffs with enough wins. And then once you hit the postseason, just continue doing the things that you're doing. Sam Adams. Yeah, that's a New England beer. Love it. Love the seasonals too. Yeah, and this is what I'm saying too. I don't care as much about the regular season if we miss the playoffs, right? Get into the postseason and then see what happens. But I'm just saying, like, the way that that the teams that win the division, some of them are like waiting a week, depending on how things play off in the rounds before them or the round before them. I don't think it's really helpful. So. Fat Tire beer. You guys know I love beer, so you're starting to get into my into my wheelhouse here. Again, the news today that broke overnight: Cody Bellinger, 3 years, $80 million, and will be joining the Cubs sometime soon. So that's exciting. I don't think that Bellinger will be in any games today or tomorrow. I could be wrong. Hey, we have Blue Moon on the kegerator, Travis, right now. One of the I do a podcast with which, by the way, guys, John Lester, great pitcher, right? You know who I always liked before that? was John Lieber. You remember John Lieber, who pitched for the Cubs? He's going to be in studio this week. I want to ask him if he likes some Blue Moon. So keep an eye out for that. He's going to come over and jump on. So, but it pitched like Lieber had an excellent year. I want to say it was 2002, maybe 2001, somewhere in there. Anyway, thanks for hanging out with us, guys. Great news today. I think that this is a contract that works really well for the Cubs. I think it gives Bellinger some security as far as what he could ask for. You know, it's almost like a pillow deal, kind of like what he had last year, except with the opt-outs. This may be the only year he plays for the Cubs. Maybe they give him an extension or whatever. But even if he just rides it out, $80 million is a lot of money. But for the Cubs, it's they get him back, and it kind of completes this narrative in the offseason on, you know, what exactly was going to happen with him. So yeah. So, hey, we'll keep an eye on here. I'm thinking Tuesday for Lieber, but we will find out. I'll ask him if he likes Blue Moon and hand him one. Thanks, guys. Stay in the comments section. Be part of the channel. Love all you guys. Thank you for being on here. And again, a big day for the Cubs signing Cody Bellinger. We'll do more of these live shows. And the game plan is, once again, Friday day games, watch parties when the Cubs are at Wrigley. So get ready for that. I'm Mick Gillispie. Thanks for hanging out, and we will talk to you again soon. Go Cubs.